Now today it's pretty funny. Not really that funny. I told Karen I was going to go out to the garage and start my work, and she said, don't start anything big today. We have company coming over. So I don't know what that means yet, but I know the day is going to be short. But the point that I always like to make is even on a short day, there's a couple of things I can do. Number one, mention to people that there's a video on, and I'm not sure if last year or the year before, on buffing out and restoring the 40 or 38-year-old paint that's on the GS, 35 years old, whatever. I don't even know how to do math. Is it on you think I had a college college degree? Forget it. I made a video about buffing out old paint. So today what I thought, because I was in a buffing mood from yesterday, there's parts of this bike that I know are not factory paint, parts that are factory paint, parts that we're going to throw away so it won't matter when the new parts come in. But I thought I'd spend a little time seeing how this paint buffs out. Now I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, probably this is 11-year-old paint, and it probably hasn't ever been buffed out. So this will be an interesting experiment today, something we can do in a short amount of time, and yet still maybe add some knowledge to the knowledge base. But the first thing we have to do, what's the first thing? Feed the birds. Second thing, have the coffee. Third thing, find something to do that we can do that'll keep us from going crazy or becoming old. That old is what I don't like. Anyway, gonna go get the compound. Gonna have the coffee first and see what we can get done today. Now I do remember restoring this old paint, and the paint was pretty shabby when I started restoring it. And I do, if I remember right, we did use the 8065, and it came out looking like a new bike. So, but that's really old paint. That's I'm guessing. Well, let's figure it out. 82 years old. There you go. It's an 82 bike. This is paint that's 4 or 5 years old, and every spring, I typically, before the season starts, I'll take the buffing wheel and go over the whole bike with 8065 and then put a coat of flitz on it. But when paint is only 4 or 5 years old, it's not a big deal to do it. We also have some paint that's really 1 year old. So you see what I'm saying? The paint on my Yamaha, on the blue one, about half of it is my repaint and half is Yamaha paint. And the paint on the RD is probably 7 or 8 years old. So what we have is paint of every age possible, that within reason, and even the oldest one, paint is easy to restore. That's the point of the video. But I gotta have coffee first. And looking at the paint on this, I don't know if it's gonna buff right up or restore easily. Again, when a bike's been left out in the rain, what happens to the paint? It oxidizes. And some of the carbon fiber looks like it's in rough shape. But we're gonna see if that 8065 can clean this up, because Chris says she has some of the parts, but there's still some missing. And if we do have some extra time, we'll get rid of the seat. I'll show how to take the seat off. Not a big deal to do that. We've got the battery tightened up. We've got the chain adjusted. And I think she'll get another season out of the chain. Back wheel is already cleaned. So working on her paint today. And the good thing about that is I can work right to the last minute if our friends come. I mean, we never know. See, some of these people show up an hour early, so. Now, it's not really exactly the same thing, but it's similar because these are modern paints. In fact, both of these cars are 09, so they're both 10 years old. And at least once a year, usually in the springtime, I'll take the buffing wheel, go over them. Takes me about a half an hour, 45 minutes. And I put a coat of flitz on or a coat of carnauba wax. And I don't do a lot of other maintenance, but the paint is still pretty nice on these cars. And yes, it has gotten cold in the last day or so. We're back to having winter temperatures. And you can see by the way the bird feeder is swinging back and forth, the wind is blowing, which probably means it's going to be even colder this afternoon. But as long as I feed the birds, they're happy. They don't care. And there's nothing better than that cup of coffee sitting on the keyboard. Oh, look at the fall leaves are out. The R1 is cross-planing. What a great way to start a day. I love looking at these videos on a decent-sized TV. Oh, listen to that motor. That motor is a one-of-a-kind cross-plane engine. Oh, what a sound. I love it. Anyway, we got to have that cup of coffee right that's sitting right there, and we got to get to work. See, that's the whole problem. The problem is I could sit at the TV for an hour watching video, and nobody comes over and does the work. Time to get to work. Now on our project bike, we have some paint that's now a couple of months old. We've been into this, we're into the 4th month of this. This paint is probably 3 months old, 2.5 months old. And just before I put the bike together, I'll take that pad that I bought from, I haven't even taken out of the package yet. It's an ultra fine pad to put a really final, just a nice little polish on it. But what's nice about this is we have some paint on this project that's 3 months old, 2 months old, and some paint we buffed out yesterday. So we'd have some paint we buffed by hand, we have some paint we buffed by machine. So what I think I've been able to do with this project is put some good quality buffing information out on the video. Now, the problem is with paint, a lot of people think paint is paint. It's like thinking ice cream is ice cream. No, it's not. Paint, and I have found in the olden days using lacquer and dope and acrylic lacquer and various things, the paint, as it got older and older, it got nicer and easier to buff. I don't know that that's true with the urethane paint, because the one I did of the Suzuki, the 82, I don't know what kind of paint that is. That was painted in 1982. My God, I was still a young man in 82. Oh, well, a medium age man. So, but the point I'm making is when you think of paint, you can't think of paint as vanilla ice cream. It could be anything. Anything from Rust-Oleum that usually takes a week before you can even put clear on it. And all the tricks we've learned from some of Luciano's experiments, my own experiments, things I've seen on YouTube. But there's one thing I think is true. I have no way to prove it's true, but to me it is when paint is cured a year, 2 years, 5 years, the older it is. That 10-year-old paint on my Sienna, when I take a buffing wheel to that in the spring, one pass and it's like a brand new van. When paint is soft, like the paint we did yesterday, it takes a little bit extra time. But anyway, what I want to do, I'm going to spend some of the time, and Karen said day's going to be very short. I'll spend whatever time I have today trying to clean up and see if some of the parts on Chris's bike, that paint that's on there is for sure, it's either 11-year-old paint or the paint or whatever they put on the carbon fiber, and I think that's just clear coated. That does not look like the kind of carbon fiber that it's a resin that we're polishing. So, but we'll check it out. But the first thing, this is the first thing. If you don't start with a proper cup of coffee, rubbing compound coffee, you go nowhere. Now before I head out, I just wanted to take one quick look at yesterday's handiwork. And the point I tried to make on the videos, this part was buffed with the buffer, and the wheels were buffed by hand, but the results, pretty much the same. Now, I've never used one of these before. This is a Bauer, and of course there's various grades. This is supposed to be the finest one, and which would be for the final polish. So I thought to experiment with this, what I do is, if this works out the way I want, I'll be able to use this on the final thing just before we put the bike together, or whatever. Haven't I gotten a chance to use it yet, because what I wanted to do with this project, I wanted to use all the proven ways that I've known that have been giving me the choice to buff things out relatively easily. And this will be an experiment. Maybe this will even make it better. I don't know, but these are available in Harbor Freight too. First thing I wanted to figure out, from looking at this paint, it does not look like factory paint. It's, well, we're going to find out. I got the little hand buffer out here, and I'm not looking to turn this bike into like my bike where it's a super high quality finish. What I'm looking to do is just make it look like it was a brand new bike, or a well-maintained bike, or whatever. I don't know what yet. But what I wanted to do is just do my little test. We're going to find out right away. It won't take long, and we'll see what happens. Now, if it's 11-year-old paint, 10-year-old paint, there's a good chance it's really in good shape. and it's got a layer of oxidation on it is what the problem is. And once we get rid of that oxidation, it won't take long to do this. This would pretty much be like I was buffing out a car. I'm not wet sanding it. I'm not removing a lot of clear when I do this. It'll take about 5 minutes to do one side of the tank here, and I want it to do one little spot, as I always do in real time, just to see what the result is going to be. The good thing about 8065, it doesn't take a lot of material off. If you're using rubbing compound, might not be a really, really good choice here. I don't know. I'm just right now concentrating on the gas tank. Okay, that's really, I know that's boring to watch. Let me get a clean microfiber. Let's see what, just a minute or two. That was really the minimum amount. I didn't want to put it in fast forward. I wanted to show in real time what this was going to look like. Now, I know one thing. I've spoken to Chris almost every day since she left the bike here. She calls this bike her girl. Well, yeah, this girl is very happy to be in this garage with like a beauty parlor, right? I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. But I wanted to show this now. I don't want to have a camera cut. I know you've just sat through something probably pretty boring, but it looks like that paint will rejuvenate up. Remember, there's no camera cuts. It looks like that paint will come up pretty nicely. In fact, look at it from this side by side. I'm not sure 2 minutes of my time that will, look at that handsome guy in the mirror there. Wow, guy looks a lot like me. Anyway, not to belabor the point here, and it's not to criticize anybody, but I'm trying to show the difference of what, let's say, and I'm looking at the timer on the camera. That was 3 minutes of time to do that. 3 minutes, that'll be 3 minutes. I'll buff this carbon fiber part out, another 3 minutes. We probably in the gas tank area will have 15 to 20 minutes, and I think it'll look spectacular. Now, this isn't a part that came with the bike. This is an aftermarket part, and I see there's a lot of aftermarket carbon fiber parts. I know Chris bought this bike used, so maybe she put them on, maybe the person who had it before put them on. But they buffed up beautifully. There's two choices with this kind of a carbon fiber part. They mold the part, and that's actually a coat of resin, so there's no finish at all. You're buffing resin. Now, these parts that Vlad are going to bring over from the Aprilia, they're made that way, and they don't have a shiny finish. So a lot of times what happens, instead of having the shiny resin finish, they'll put on a coat of clear automotive paint. Well, the clear automotive paint, of course, is going to buff up just like the gas tank, and you can see that didn't come out too bad. Now, the opposite of that, these are the R1 mufflers that I made. There's no paint. You can't paint a muffler. That paint would not last on a muffler, but that's actually the Huntsman resin that's been buffed out. When I made the mold for the parts, that part is, and I already have that. You know, that's one of the things that I think's on those discs at Racing. I may put that on the end of, making those mufflers was quite a job, but again, the buffing it out, that's what makes it special. So here's the thing, this is an 09 bike. Some of these parts have been painted and some haven't, because I've made parts for this bike. I made this part, so obviously that one's buffed out. This is a factory part. Well, but I took the factory paint and buffed out the factory paint right after I bought the bike. So it's hard to compare apples and oranges right now. Again, my motive is not to make the bike, turn it into a show bike. Because if this were the beginning of the winter, I'd suggest just pull it apart and we'll paint it. But I don't want to do that right now. Now, the little tail section here is in rough shape. I don't know what they did. This is supposed to say R6 here. But I'm just going to run the buffer over that and see if the paint looks a little bit better. Now this is the part of the seat that we're going to keep. The other part is getting replaced and I'm going to have to paint it, but this part is going to stay on the bike. And this is, again, this is the part that we're going to keep. So if we can clean this up even just a little bit, it will make doing the work on the bike a lot easier. I like it a lot more when I'm working with clean parts. That buffed out really nice. In fact, you can see this is the part we buffed out, and this is the part of the bike that we're going to replace. This part of that, I got to take that off, in fact. But even all these little details, every time there's a detail done to the bike, just that much nicer. That much more enjoyable to work on. And ride. And by the way, 8065 is good for clearing up headlight lenses. In this case, there's a couple of scratches on the windshield. I'm sure this will at least minimize them, if not take them totally out. Looks like a brand new windshield. Every little thing is just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. All pays off in the end. I think it does anyway. Even the headlight lenses and this little part of the fairing that usually takes a beating, bugs and stones and everything. And I never really know what parts of the bike are going to buff right up, and some take a little more elbow grease than others. Now I can tell by looking at this bike has been repainted. These parts have definitely been repainted. Now I don't know if that's from crash damage or track day damage or what, but that's not factory paint. How do I know? I can tell by looking at it. I know you might think I'm kidding that I can tell by looking at it, but I can. Trust me, I've been doing this for a long time. Actually, I've been doing it for over 50 years, maybe 55, I don't know. But whatever time we have available today to do this, it'll just make the overall bike that much nicer, and it'll be better that when we actually get the parts to work on it, we'll be ready to go. It'll be a lot more enjoyable. Especially now that Chris is keeping it in a garage. Should be nice and clean. So in a very short amount of time, we've made some real progress on the girl. Now, some parts of this have to be done by hand. And by the way, these aftermarket carbon fiber parts, these don't have any finish on them. These might be the real deal, I don't know. But the ones that have extra automotive paint as the finish, they tend to buff right up. This one I can feel the cloth coming through, so this may not have an automotive type of finish on it. I don't know, but either way, we'll clean it up. And we're going to have a couple of days of working on a bike that'll be just a little bit more enjoyable. You feel like, well, I guess it's to say, Karen loves football. I'm not a big football fan, but Karen is. And I always tell her, it's like playing on a winning team is a lot more fun than playing on a team that never gets to win. Now let's just see if this is cleaning up the way I hope it is. Yeah, it's cleaning right up. It's just that same old thing, it just takes time. Now, if we had the parts here, I probably would have skipped this step. But I had time today. It's a very unusual day. Again, Karen and I have people coming from out of town, so I want to be ready and dressed and clean, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but even a little bit of cleanup like that, wow, makes a difference. Now here's a funny Chris story. There was a time when I was looking for some aftermarket mirrors, and I asked Chris to look on. She had Amazon Prime and I didn't. And actually, she wound up buying me a set of the mirrors that are on one of the bikes. I don't think they're on a green bike, but I'm not sure. And so I look at her bike, and she has the little shorty mirrors that you could upgrade these mirrors and see a little more out of them. And boy, that's one of the things I would suggest if she really wanted an upgrade the bike. That's part of what I think on these bikes. They just get a lot more enjoyable a ride when you can see who's behind you. Now, of course, a lot of the parts of the bike have to be done by hand, and the 8065 is just perfect for this. It's no problem at all. Now, I do remember a time that we had the front fender on this bike loose. I don't know if we were changing a tire at Luciano's or what we were doing. I do remember this being a problem. So as I'm going around this, and we're going to pull the front wheel off and do the tire valve. Well, I don't know. I think it's the front tire that has the slow leak, but she's got new Curvy Girls or some equivalent of Curvy Girls coming. But even a little bit of maintenance. This is a part you almost don't see, but when it's clean, it's just nicer working on the bike. And if you don't like working on a bike, then I understand this whole thing. But every time I can make it more pleasant to work with. Now, you might be thinking, how does he know it's not factory paint? I can tell by, I have a lot of factory paint. These bikes were all factory paint. When you see a paint job that has distinct orange peel in spots, that you can tell it was not done by a factory or by somebody that was a high quality guy. Because this paint has a lot of orange peel. Now, what would happen is, and I don't know that at some time if Chris were to have an accident with the bike, and God forbid, or a crash, or when she had her track day accident, it would not have been a big deal to repaint the whole bike. But you can't repaint over this orange peel. This would all have to come off, be stripped down. And I know she's not into that, but even if you're not into it, having a nice clean bike that all the bolts are tight, the chain is adjusted, and the seat doesn't fall off, that's a good thing. Now, when we have the front wheel off, we'll check the brake, make sure she's got material on the brake pads, 15,000, and track days. Sometime you need it, and you never know when you're going to need it. That's why you check it. So here's an example. Just look at this part. It's not been polished, and here's the part that has been polished. And it's only a question of maybe 10 minutes, and you've got an upgrade on a bike that I think is a significant thing. Now, as I'm cleaning up Chris's bike, I'm reminded of way back, probably 7-8 years ago, of the shifter on this bike. Now, it's a funny thing. This is really a funny story. We were riding, and I was after one of the New Jersey sport bike rides, I told Chris what we could do is go out and ride up by the onion fields. Now, back in the old days, not everybody had a video camera. In fact, I don't think anybody did. And so what I did, I let Chris take the lead. We were up by the onion fields, and I wanted to see what her body positioning was, and I was trying to help her figure out how to do the proper lines through turns and stuff. And what had happened is she had a habit of, on this side, her foot pointing straight down. And when I showed her the video, she was amazed that I was right. And so what we did, when I looked at the bike, and we were on the road, we were up by the onion fields, I had to adjust the shifter. Well, the reason she was having problems, the shifter was way the hell out of adjustment. Whoever had the bike before had that problem. But the point that I was making is, years ago, not everybody had a video camera. I was probably the only one, in fact, for many years. And so what happened, we picked up on a little body positioning thing and a little thing of trimming the bike that made it a lot safer. And she's gone on to become quite a rider. Anybody that's ridden with her, when she gets in a mood, they know. Well, we've been working out in the garage, and it's time for a coffee break. It's cold. It's really cold out here. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking. I should have put my long underwear on. So I come in from freezing outside, and the whole house smells like pork tenderloin. Oh my God. That's great. Where's my coffee? Let's get down to brass tacks of what keeps this marriage going.
There's something else in the oven.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. The coffee. I come in, the coffee's already going. Now that's what keeps this marriage a top shelf marriage. Well, if nothing else, I'll leave the oven open so I can warm up. It's colder out there than I thought it was. It's really cold, in fact. Look at that meatloaf. Mmm. One of my favorites, meatloaf. Boy, these birds, they fight over these seeds. Holy mackerel. Don't worry, I got plenty more where they came from. Wow. Look at these birds. Now I'm trying to figure something out here because this is a little bit different than an R1. But it's this that I have to look at, because what's going to happen sometimes when you put the lowering links in, and it looks like that won't be a big deal to put them in, there's a pretty, well, we've already done it already a couple times anyway, 3 times. But anyway, here's what's a tricky thing. Then what happens a lot of times, the bike doesn't lean enough on the kickstand. So what you have to do is this little piece of the kickstand right here is take a grinding wheel to it, so the kickstand moves forward just a little bit. That's what I've done on the R1. It's kind of a nuclear option, or the other thing you can do, and it'll be up to Chris if you want to buy an adjustable kickstand. And I don't like the adjustable kickstands because if the bolt gets loose, nothing good happens. Anyway, I'm looking around for other things that I can. I've got a little time here before our company comes, and we can do anything we can do to get this job ready, because this will be, when she's got this all back together, it's all polished up and the lowering links are on, I think she's going to be really happy. Now I see the connectors that hold the seat in place, the cosmetic part of it anyway. One is missing. I think I have an extra one, but there should be 4. This one was missing. I think I have some extra ones when we put this back together. These parts, they're held on by these little Zeus, I call them Zeus Fasteners. They're nylon Zeus Fasteners. And there's one big screw here, if I remember right. Yeah, I got to get that screw out. Then this part will come off, and then I can pull this part off. So kind of a little bit different than an R1, but it's similar, but not exactly the same. Now it's funny how a lot of the bikes are very similar. Some are just a little bit different. Some are a lot different. But they pretty much all have some similarities. Oop, there goes the Zeus fitting. And this piece, if I remember right, this piece up here is a pain to get out. We got to get this loose in the back. This piece up here is always, oh, I love R6s. Anyway, that part's off. Now we can get the seat off. This is the part that we're going to replace. Now this is the piece that she has coming, which we're going to have to paint, of course. Get these out of here. And once they're painted, this one looks like it's shy. There we go. Always something. Let's see now. We got anything else holding this puppy on? Yeah, there's some on the bottom. There's some back here. Okay, so there's like 6. I'm gonna have to make a little cup for all the extra screws that put this part back together. This side is shot. Let's see. And this side, I don't even have to take the screws out of this side. Actually, I do have to take the screws out. That part goes with that. That part goes with this. Ay, 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 ay. But again, what I'll do with this, when she gets the new part, I'll make sure it fits before I paint it. Because if you do, a lot of times you do all the work and then you realize, uh-oh, this part is broken right here. Yeah, this is coming right off. All right, I got to loosen on the other side and we'll be good. We'll have that part off. And this is where having one of these little Harbor Freight flashlights come in handy, because you really can't visibly see these real easy. As he takes a screwdriver to the nose. Okay. Okay, now I'm looking around. This is why I like to have clean motorcycles. I'm looking around. Here's a piece of the bodywork that's broken. So what I'm going to do is go get some JB Weld and fix that. Make a little repair on that before that gets worse or the damage is something else. So while I have this apart, of course, I'll clean the whole thing up and I'll go get some JB Weld and make that little repair. Now I lined up all the fittings and I can see 1 is broken, 2 are missing, and I'm not sure about that one, if that one was missing too, but I do have some spares, so when we go to put this back together, I'll make sure we don't drop the football on that. And we're going to mix up some good old-fashioned JB Weld, the racer's friend. Because that bodywork that's cracked on the bottom, first of all, you won't see the repair, number one. And number two, it'll keep it from getting worse or becoming dangerous. And we have a spare piece of, this is why I saved the scraps from the carbon fiber that I make. I can cut the reinforcement piece on that. That should be a really good repair. Before I put that carbon fiber reinforcement in there, and it looks like that's going to be fine, again, once I have things apart, it's just my nature, just my habit to get everything clean. And I'm sure overkill is the word you're thinking of. Well, to me, I'm thinking the day we're going to work on this and put these parts back, and I see there's another piece back here I got to deal with. Well, I'm not worried about it now, but here's another good tip. When you're doing this, the old painting stick trick, what this is going to allow me to do is get down in here, and we're going to be putting a seat on the bike. We're going to be doing some other work, lowering links, lowering link on an R6. There's two of them, so that'll be interesting. It'll be just like the FCR, and it's really, if you don't have a second person helping you when you do it, it can be challenging, but we try to do everything here as if we're a one-horse band, and sometimes it's really inconvenient, but having things clean, I can never underestimate how important it is. The quality, and these little things like we find this broken bodywork here, this is stuff you'd never find. And what happens if you don't repair this crack? What's going to ultimately happen? It's no secret what's going to happen. It's going to crack, and all of a sudden some part can become dangerous, part can fall off the bike, whatever. And if you maintain it, you just stack the deck in your favor that you're going to have a good riding season. Now, this is after all the years, 11 years on this bike. There's a surprisingly little amount of stuff that we have to do to bring it right back up to like what I always say is like a new bike. I like to think it's better than a new bike because we've checked everything. So again, this is the little piece that's broken. We're going to put that back, and we have that little carbon fiber patch for that. When it dries, it should be better than new. And that little piece of carbon fiber and a JB Weld should keep that from cracking any worse. And, well, just little details. And that's why when you work on a bike, you should always be checking everything. And I always go around and make sure everything is tight. Everything is, well, we've already checked the battery. Toolkit is in good condition. Nothing's loose back here. Because now, once we put this back together, we're hoping it's going to be just as reliable as or maybe better than a brand new bike. So we got all the old parts off the bike. They're sitting over there. And the next step on this is we're going to have to get some parts because they're going to have to be painted. Well, no matter what, this did turn out to be quite a productive day, and it's going to make the next part of this job just a little bit easier, just a little bit more fun. And what can I say? I had a very short day today. I didn't waste much time. This was productive, and I know it's worth every penny, every minute, every second we put into this. The bike will just be nicer, and Chris should have a safe bike to ride when this whole thing is put back together. As I'm looking this over, I'm thinking this was time well spent. And of course, the objective of everything that we do is to make the bike safe, reliable, and most of all, fun to ride. And I think we've pushed the football in that direction today. And Karen has just rung the phone and told me, get ready, it's time. I got to get dressed up into street clothes. This was a good day. I count this day as a good one. And we're one step further on the R6 project. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you're busy detailing your bike too. And thanks for watching.